Hey everybody, it's Professor Algazine, and for today's fun video, I thought I'd bring you into the kitchen where I'm making a bear bolognese. When my dad harvested this bear this past fall and we took it to the butcher was like, yeah, we can make some chopped bear meat for you, probably good for chili. And I was like, no chili. I'll use cheap meat for chili. Good bear meat goes into a nice bolognese. And he was like, oh, you know what's up. So here we are today, and I'm making some bear bolognese. I've got a pot of water going here because we're going to be cooking some pasta. We're going to use a nice rotini. The rotini has those spirals in it, and those spirals are going to gather up and catch all of that wonderful bolognese in it. You don't want to use like a spaghetti, because as you twirl the spaghetti, the bolognese just strips right off of it. Going to throw some kosher salt in there to bring that water up to the right salt level that it'll need to cook the pasta. And then we have the basic ingredients that go into a bolognese. You've got the three sisters in Italian. That means onion, celery, and carrot. Now, for good measure, I'm adding in a little shallot because I had some shallots left over from something I cooked the other day. You always want to put garlic in something, so I've got a nice bulb of garlic here we'll use. Then, of course, we use tomato paste. And the pasta water, that nice seasoned pasta water, and the tomato paste is going to go in, and that's going to give us our rich, red, creamy tomato flavoring. And then the star attraction for today is our ground bear meat. This is as it came from the butcher. I've just defrosted it. It's here in the vacuum sealed package, so we're going to cut into this and get this going. The last thing that I'll tell you about our recipe for today is, as soon as the camera comes back over to me, the last thing that I'll tell you about the recipe for today is bear meat, like any game meat, is extremely lean. There's no fat in it. So I'm going to be using some good Colavita EVOO to give a little fat into this recipe, and you'll see me when I start cooking. So for now, I'll stop here. What we're going to do next is prep all of these vegetables to a really fine dice and get ready with a fry pan and some EVOO in it. And once the water comes to a boil, of course, I'll have the pasta cooking too. So I'll be right back when I've got these veggies prepped. Okay, so welcome back. What you're looking at here is all my fine diced vegetables that I've made up. I'm just over here stirring a pasta. And I can't say this enough. Your dice needs to be really fine, so you can see how fine I've got my dice on my carrot and my celery, my onion. Even this could have been diced a little bit more, although onion wilts pretty good. And then I've got a nice chopped up garlic. Don't use the jarred stuff. I hate that stuff. Use fresh garlic. It only takes you a minute. You peel them, chop them up good. You bang them with the palm of your hand with the knife blade flat on them to release the flavor and aromatics, and then you chop them up fine. And I had like I say, normally I wouldn't put shallots in a bolognese, but I had it, and I don't want it to go to waste, so we're going to chop up the shallot and add that as well. So here's our veggies. Over here I've got my pan going. I've got everything ready. The pan's getting hot. We're going to use a nice Colavita EVOO extra virgin olive oil. So you want, a tablespoon or two in here of that. You don't have to be shy about it. You can use any kind of oil. Olive oil, of course, works best. And you want it to get nice and hot. And this is going to come together really fast now. I've got about 5.5 minutes on the pasta. And I think we can make this sauce come together in that 5.5 minutes. So here's what we're going to do. The first thing I'm going to add, I know I keep getting my shoulder in the way, you watch the pan now. The first thing I'm going to add is the onion, and get that in there, hear that sizzle, and the carrot. You definitely want to get the carrot in right away because it takes a little bit longer, and the celery. We're going to put those in. Sometimes I add the carrot first, just because it takes a little bit longer to cook. But I think we're going to be okay here. You don't have to add as many vegetables to your bolognese, but it's a good thing to do, and this is the traditional Italian methodology for doing it. So we get our veggies going here. Get that EVOO all on them. I keep whacking into my pasta pot going. And you're not going to cook these till they're brown by any stretch of the imagination. You're just trying to get them. Wilted. You're trying to get them so that they are softened. And I got to find some red wine to go with this here. So while you keep an eye on that for me, watch that pan. I like to cook with good wine, so I've got a nice Cabernet here, and I'm going to open it up. I forgot to get this earlier. You guys keeping an eye on that pan for me? I'm just uncorking a nice Cabernet because we're going to throw some red wine in this in a minute. It's important to be able to add liquids. So, I'm good there. Let's stir this up a little bit. Carrot is just starting to show signs of a little bit of goldenness on it. So it's at this point, I'm going to go ahead and throw in the shallots, which are very delicate, and the garlic, which burns fast, so you want to add it later rather than sooner. And then we just want to get this tossed around in here. Just enough to release some of the aromatic. I'm going to add a little more EVOO. It's looking a little dry to me. And you've got to remember, again, you're cooking with bear meat. If you're cooking with game meat, there's no fat in it. Extremely lean. So me adding extra virgin olive oil here by the buckets isn't going to hurt a thing, because the meat is so without fat that little bit of extra fat is going to be okay. Alright, so we got this going. I got 2 minutes left on my pasta. I'm not doing too good here. I'm a little behind. That's alright. And we let these guys just cook a little bit more. Flatten them right out in there, because we're going to go in with the meat any second now. So I'm just opening up my bag of this delicious bear meat. I'm getting ready with it. And here's what I'm going to do. Just going to separate this. You're going to open this up so your veg goes out to the side like that. That's all. Some people will take them right out of the pot. Sometimes I just believe that's all you got to do. I'm going to put a little more EVOO in the middle. Uh-oh. Colavita failed me. My jar is empty. Gonna have to go to the cheap stuff. I'm just gonna put a splash of some regular olive oil in there. Right there in the middle like that. And we're gonna drop in the bear meat. Here she goes. Break it up as it comes out. Give it a sizzle. Yeah, look at that beautiful, fresh, ground meat. You won't find anything this fresh anywhere in the market unless you go to a butcher, go straight to a farm stand, go see one of your local farmers, get you some really fresh beef. Okay? I just want to break this up. It's going to brown fast. I don't have to cook it all the way. Okay. Use the meat to push the veg out of the way just until the meat browns. And if it gets too chunky, I'm going to show you another trick in a second here. But I'm going to let that brown a little bit. Now, I don't know if you can see this or not. We need to reserve some pasta water. My pasta timer just went, so this pasta is going to have to go to the sink and get drained before it overcooks. But you just ladle in a bunch of pasta water because you're going to need some. You're going to need a couple of cups full. I like to reserve this. You can use this in sauces. It's lovely, it's starchy, and it's seasoned, it's flavored with the flavor of the pasta. It makes excellent sauces. As a matter of fact, I usually have a couple of cups in my freezer at all times. So I'm just going to put about 4 cups pasta water aside there. And while this browns a little bit, we're going to pause because I'm going to drain the pasta and we'll be right back. Okay, so we're back. Here's my secret. Potato masher. Use a potato masher to really break up chopped meat as it's frying, and it'll make it into the crumbles that you want. If you don't do this, you end up with great big chunks of meat. And that's okay if you're doing chili or stew. And it's not as necessary usually with beef, because beef has so much fat in it that the meat itself crumbles apart. But for something really lean, if you're cooking with a lean lamb or you get some lean venison, you need to chop it up. You need to get it small so that it'll make a bolognese and not a bowl of stew. Okay, so get it crumbled up. Now that's about the consistency I like. And watch how fast this starts to come together now. Waste not, want not. Okay, got a little bit here. It just needs to go in there so that it'll cook. Alright, now I'm going to mix in my veg. They're all hanging out here on the sideline. See how it ends up being not a lot of veg? Okay. Alright, and I don't want things to get too crazy here and start to burn. This is doing good. I'm still on a medium-high heat. But I do want to just open up a hot spot, and you want to cook your tomato paste. This is just a small can of tutto rosso tomato paste. This releases into the sauce so much flavor. It's so good. Now you watch a cook like Lydia, who taught me a lot about how to cook these things. This is exactly what Lydia will do. She'll put a couple tablespoons in. Me, I'm putting the whole can in. And just mash it down. Maybe it mixes a little with the meat, but that's okay. You just want to flip it over, get it hot. Get that tomato paste to bubble a little bit so that it's cooking. Okay? Now, what we have is the heavy base now for our bolognese. We have our vegetables, our meats, and our tomato paste. From here, we slowly add liquids, and we turn this into a simmer instead. The first one I always like to add while the pan is good and hot is red wine. So we're just going to go once around the pan here. Some red wine. Yeah. Another thing we're going to do is go in the cabinet and get a glass, because there's nothing better than having a little while you're cooking. Okay? Now you want to put the red wine in because it needs to cook the alcohol off. This isn't about making drunken anything. It's about releasing the flavor. And you know what? That cooked off so fast. And this is good wine. I'm going to put a little bit more in. You want that rich boldness of the Cabernet or whatever wine you choose to start to cook into the meat, release its flavor into the tomatoes. Okay, now we've got this starting to come together. And as it starts to lose liquid, give it some liquid. So I've got my reserved pasta water, and that's what we're going to go in here with next. And it's a process of adding and diluting and mixing. Oh, if you guys could only smell this. I'm telling you right now, first of all, bear, let me tell you a little bit about bear meat. It's some of the best beef you'll ever have. It is a red meat. It tastes very much like beef, only it's much more subtle. It's more, it's not as, honestly, people think game meat is gamey. I think once I had had bear, I think meat that comes from beef is gamier than bear. Can you see this now? Look how this is all incorporating. It's really starting to come together. It's making the bolognese now. And as it thickens, just keep adding a little bit of liquid. I'm going to give it a couple ladles more of the pasta water. You see the steam rising. You know, you are boiling off some of the moisture content, but that's okay. This is now something that you simmer. This is looking good. Look how that turned out. A second ago we had meat. Now we have sauce. And that's all you have to do to bring this together. Okay? I'm going to add another layer of tomato flavoring in. I had some tutto rosso tomato puree. I had some left over from something else I cooked. So I'm just going to put that in here. It's just a little bit of puree. It's going to add more to that kind of like gravy. Waste not, want not. Let's get the rest of that in there. You can smell, I can smell the garlic. I can smell all of the goodness that's coming off of this. Okay, so that's just another layer of tomato gravy and tomato flavor that's going in there. I use a big non-stick pan. I'm a fan of the non-stick pans. They work really well. You know, when my grandparents were cooking and I was watching, we didn't have non-stick pans. Teflon pans became a thing later in my life. Of course, Teflon you can't use anymore. I'm going to turn this down now because now we want a simmer on this. I've got this just about where you want a bolognese to be. And doesn't that just look amazing? All right, just pick it up off the heat, tip it towards you. See how it just bubbles. I pull this through it, it leaves a trail. It's got sauce, yet when you pick it up and the sauce drains away, you can see it is just meat and more meat. What a bolognese this is. So I'm going to pause here for a minute. We're just going to let this simmer for a little while. The more you let it simmer now, the more tender it gets. I might have to add a little more pasta water as it goes, and we'll see how this comes out in a little bit and serve it over some pasta. Be right back. All right, we're back. And I was only gone a couple minutes actually. I put a little bit more pasta water in it. I turned it off. And this is really all you have to do. Now I want to talk about seasoning. You notice I didn't put salt, pepper, garlic powder, basil, none of that. You don't need it. If you want it, you prefer it that way, by all means. If that's the way your grandmother made it, make it that way. I could have thrown some dried basil or fresh basil in this. That would go nice. I could have thrown a bay leaf in here to infuse a little flavor, but it really doesn't need it. And when I'm cooking with something like bear, I don't want to hide the flavor. I don't want to hide the complexity that already comes with that natural meat. And I already have all that infused flavor from the Three Sisters, the shallots that I added, and the garlic that I added. So this is really ready to serve. I gave it one little test while we were gone just to make sure. Remember, we reserved all that pasta water. Another good thing to use your pasta water for, pasta gets all clumpy. So I tossed a little pasta water in my pasta and then shook it up. Pasta keeps absorbing moisture as you go along. That's why if you make a macaroni salad or you put some leftover pasta with sauce on it away, you come back to it the next day, it's all dry and cakey. That's because this stuff absolutely just absorbs moisture continuously. Look at that sauce. Would you just look at this? Look at it going on the meat. This is a bolognese that you can really get yourself into. And we just pack it on there like that, because remember, the pasta's the base. The bolognese is the meal here. Served with a nice red wine. I've got a little, I'm a fan of Asiago cheese. I've got a nice Asiago here. So I'm just gonna, I got this around right? Yeah, I'm just gonna grate some of this on it. See, and here's another reason why you don't need a lot of salt when you're cooking Italian, because we Italians, we always put cheese on everything. Cheese is loaded with salt. So look how pretty that is. If I had a sprig of fresh basil, I could put it on top to make it look like the chef's, but who needs that when you have this? Ladies and gentlemen, I give to you my bear bolognese, fit to be eaten with a spoon. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I know my daughter and I are going to go enjoy this bolognese. Bye for now.